Up next, we've got the Elite versus the Death Triangle in match number 2 of our best of 7. The Kansas entrance is back and looks to be at least here to stay for the time being. Don Callis is on commentary. They also replay Penta and George Kittle's interaction from Monday, showing off some of that mainstream press for the Lucha Brothers here. Pac comes out wearing a face mask, and the announcers inform us that he suffered a broken nose on Wednesday. So I don't know if this, was an angle or if it was legitimate, but it at least played into the match. Any thoughts, Bruce?
Yeah, I was having that exact same question, whether it was legit or not, but one way or the other. The Elite had to know that they were going to be at least somewhat booed, or at least having to play somewhat heel in this. So having that as a target for Pac, I thought was really, really good. Fortuitous bit of luck there.
So we should talk about this now, okay? Because the Elite came out here working full heel. And of course, this is Chicago. What was the reaction you were expecting them to receive? And do you think they were met with that reaction?
I was not expecting quite as vociferous a F the Elite chant as happened when they first came out, but neither was I expecting to actually hear FCM Punk chants in Chicago later on into this match as well. So this really seemed like just a classic, kind of getting back to the Shades of Grey Attitude Era type, kind of pick your poison type sort of mixed crowd reaction. Obviously, the Elite are working heel, and I think it was smart to do that. The Dan Flash's outfits, all of the shimmying coming down, down the ramp and everything like that. But the other thing is that all of the guys involved in this match are canny enough and savvy enough to adjust on the fly based on the crowd's temperature and, do spots or sequences that will play to whichever way the wind happens to be blowing in the stadium at that one time. So, I mean, it was a hot crowd, right? In terms of both negative and positive reactions all over the place throughout. So before we even if we want to touch the third rail question of the possibility of a return being teased here, I think even for right now, for the remainder of these next few matches, they've got a pretty hot hand. And I think they're going to try to squeeze as much as they can out of it, whether that's leaning into, very extreme heel reactions in some towns, whether that is prompting all manner of online speculation on the basis of individual spots and gestures that we saw in this match. I think, who knows exactly when this whole 7-match series was decided upon, but knowing that there might be a mixed reaction to the Elite in certain areas, I think they're going to milk it for all it's worth.
I did not hear the F the Elite chant maybe as loudly as maybe you it sounds like you did, but to me, like it I don't know if the Elite reaction was as anti Elite as much as I think was warranted in a match like this. And my biggest criticism of them deciding to go full heel for this match was that it took so much away from the match on Saturday and the internal struggle that Phoenix had in deciding to finally turn heel. Phoenix had to really kind of, struggle for weeks to decide to finally use that bell hammer. And I think that needed to be followed up here, with the Death Triangle being full on heels and the Elite being the baby faces. Instead, it was the Death Triangle as baby faces, and we'll get to maybe the match itself. But by the end of the match, I kind of felt like what happened on Saturday's narrative was kind of rendered useless. But we will talk about it as we go through the match here, because a lot happened in this match that was very interesting that we will spend a lot of time talking about. Kenny and Phoenix start things off. A Terminator dive is interrupted by a Phoenix cutter. Phoenix then delivers this crazy tornado to the pile below. There was one moment where there were some very audible CM Punk chants heard, and you can see Matt crotch chopping the audience in the area where they're being directed. And this is where I started to hear the fuck CM Punk chants, and the cameras actually decide to close up on fans chanting it. So this followed up from, of course, BTE, where you had some of that emphasis as well. At least the direction here on this show seemingly making a point to show that this audience was chanting "fuck CM Punk." Certainly interesting there. Nick holds Pac up for Matt to seemingly hit a buckshot lariat. Matt Jackson does the flip and then intentionally lands on his ass. A clear sort of mocking of CM Punk for his failed buckshot lariats in his matches against Hangman Page. Omega then bites Pac, bites him, of course, directly playing into, of course, the Ace Steel biting. Phoenix then takes the hot tags with Phoenix doing this sort of crazy multi-jump springboard Rana. Matt distracts Pac to allow Kenny to hit a V-trigger and a Snapdragon. The Elite then rip Pac's protective face mask off as they deliver a three-way super kick. Pac then escapes the one-legged angel as Kenny hoists him up into a fireman's carry as Kenny delivers the go to sleep to Pac, who kicks out at a 2 count. Big reaction. First of all the references to CM Punk and Ace Steel. What were your reactions as you were watching?
I mean, this ran entirely counter to the piece that Kenny, or that printed interview. I think it was in Sports Illustrated. I'm sorry, I don't remember the interviewer off the top of my head.
Justin Barrasso.
Yes, thank you. Where Kenny was trying to just sort of, tamp it down and whatnot. Obviously, that was completely out the window, or that was a work there, because, this was just them shining the crowd on as much as possible. The second this started happening, I mean, he did the little, the GTS, kind of nighty night gesture, before going for the Terminator dive, even before actually pulling the GTS itself off. The second this starts happening, your Twitter timeline is just exploding with speculation about they've got to deliver Punk back now if they're, they can't promise something and not come through on it. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I don't think that there is inherently an objective negative or a unilateral downside to playing around with this sort of stuff and, kind of confronting the elephant in the room through these, kind of in-match, in-ring gestures and nods and winks and everything. It's what everybody's thinking about to begin with anyway. We can sort of talk about whether or not the heel shtick did sort of blur or sideline the Death Triangle's move here, but it's what's on everyone's mind right now, and they're gonna play around with it as much as possible. They're in the belly of the beast in Chicago. You have this crowd that again seemed to be sort of fluctuating and moving back and forth from section to section, from sequence to sequence in the match. So I mean, are they playing with fire? I guess, yeah, maybe. But, I kind of feel like the sort of person, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if there are people who have decided that they're out on AEW, now that Punk is seemingly persona non grata. But again, it's what everyone is thinking about. And if we're not going to be getting, as many people have said, if we're not getting like a kayfabe explanation from Commissioner Tony about why, CM Punk and the Elite were stripped of their respective titles, I feel like something like this is kind of necessary to sort of bridge that kind of open question within the AEW world of what was going on with all of that. And again, as you and John have said, everybody who's watching and would question, hey, isn't that CM Punk's move? Everybody knows what's going on there anyway. So having these sorts of winks and nods, I think, is at least, treating the audience with a modicum of intelligence there. But
how does doing this answer any of those questions? I think it only raises those questions back up when maybe interest was starting to die down. The problem, and let me finish the match first before we get into this. Okay, he does the go to sleep. There's a big reaction to it. It prompts some fuck CM Punk chants from this crowd. Matt Jackson at this point hits a low blow to Pac behind the ref's back. Matt then grabs the bell hammer, but Penta is behind him with his own bell hammer as he uses it on Matt, and Pac pins Matt. The Death Triangle is up 2-0 here. Both of them now cheating. So the action was stellar. The atmosphere was incredible. I have a feeling, Bruce, you and I are going to disagree on the content of this match because I hated it. I think having the Bucks, first of all, play heel, I've kind of indicated my issues with that. It totally took away from, I think, Phoenix's, in particular, his narrative and his character growth coming off of Saturday. But I think the CM Punk spots in particular, Tony Khan and AEW have worked so hard to ignore the issue, to step away from the issue, to convince the media to step away from the issue. Kenny Omega himself is encouraging the audience to step away from the issue. And in this match, you fan the flames again. You deliberately keep the issue in everybody's memory. And I think yes, it is on everybody's mind, but I don't think addressing it in this way was what the audience is in any way satisfying for the audience. It only makes the feud hotter, and it only makes people want to ask those questions that much more. And I think it takes away from the great job that guys like Mox and MJF have done to try to distance this company from that dark cloud. And it's unless Punk is coming back, and of course those are going to be the rumors are bigger now, or the suggestion and sort of the speculation is now bigger than ever that Punk is going to be returning, and he could very well. It seems so counter though to everything else that we've seen from this company up until this point.
I mean, again, we're getting into we're going through the looking glass here in terms of speculation and fantasy booking, but I mean, one possibility there is that situation has changed behind the scenes, right? That things were going in one direction and now they're going in another. Because I mean, I will definitely agree with you that this was clearly a concerted choice and an effort, and it does, you're exactly right, fly completely in the face of the way that Tony and others have been trying to adjust or control the flow of questions and discussion about, one Phil Brooks in the aftermath of all of this. For whatever reason, and I can't imagine that any of this is, the Bucks or Omega going off of script here. This has to be being done with as much blessing, from the big seat as there is. This has been decided upon as a way of attracting interest in the Elite's return, and the kind of the meta issues surrounding their absence and their return. I think I see your point, certainly about Death Triangle and how it sort of does them no favors, maybe in the short term. The fact that, we sort of had, I thought there was something symbolic about the fact that it was Penta, right, who delivered the hammer blow this time to sort of indicate that, okay, they are all on side with, being willing to be underhanded here. It's not just Phoenix or whatever it is. They're all on board with this now. So
he was also distracting the ref on Saturday.
True.
He was kind of in on it.
True.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's early days here, right? We're only a couple of days away from from the match on Saturday, so I'm not really sure as to where we're going in terms of the question of Punk's return or not, obviously. I just kind of want to say that it's a little bit too early to judge the efficacy of this. This is also of playing with this imagery. This is also something that could possibly shift and change over the remainder of the next matches. This is kind of unprecedented, I think, in terms of this, this long of a sequence of matches in AEW. It's very striking. It's being dragged out for, a month and a half or 2 months or whatever it is. So I sort of have to think that there are going to be other chapters there. I don't mean to be doing a a Road Dogg let it play out sort of caution here. But given how deliberate this was, at least in the short term, I have to think there's some logic to it, and they have to know, to a certain degree, have some sort of plan. At least for the next few weeks, I'm willing to give them a little bit of rope. I'm
at least curious about the babyface heel dynamic for the remainder of these matches, And yes, I know the Bucks always have sort of this obnoxious personality about them anyway that kind of makes them likable, despite the fact that they're doing heelish things. I mean, tonight though, I didn't get that sense at all, and in fact, it was Death Triangle that were the baby faces. Yeah, I'm just kind of not really I don't see the point of the CM Punk thing. Even if you're in Chicago, first of all, it was way more 50-50, if not if they did not mention the CM Punk stuff, or if they didn't reference CM Punk at all in any of the wrestling, I think you would have had a few chants. But beyond that, they would have moved on, and they would have earned this crowd's respect as baby faces because they were about to see a great match. I feel like you could have carried the same narrative that you had on Saturday, and this felt like a total 180, and something that I feel like ultimately might be a bit more detrimental to this company trying to move away from it all.
I mean, it's one of those things that could just be changing night to night. Again, I hate to be making Attitude Era callbacks here, but the Bret Austin crossing the border sort of thing. Whether or not
the payoff.
Yeah, this is the question. Yeah, I mean, it makes, in terms of payoff, doesn't necessarily work out. But in terms of week to week, maybe it pops ratings. Not that that's the sort of thing that you necessarily want. That sort of short-term planning is necessarily where you want to be going. I get your point. Yeah.
Certainly the hottest topic, I would say, coming off of this show. And some of you guys will very much disagree with me or maybe agree with me. Leave a comment in whatever source that you are listening this to us in, and let us know, because I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of thoughts. We thought we were done with the issue. You think again, okay? We are back to talking about CM Punk and the Elite.